Hello everybody, we have a lot to talk about. We have some updates, we have some resignations we need to talk about, and we're all going to cover that in this video. Hi everybody, I'm Justice Graves, private citizen, and the last time that we spoke, last time we spoke on my channel, I was recently elected as a school committee member of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee serving the towns of Templeton and Phillipston, Massachusetts. Since then, a lot has happened. I've been through 7 committee meetings. I've been through a lot of different events. We've all seen what's been going on in the news with the public school systems. We've all seen what's been going on in the state of Massachusetts, which is where I reside. There's just a lot of action going on, but that is not really the point of this video to discuss all of that. We're just going to talk about what led us to this point and what you can expect on this channel moving forward, because I am going to be doing new content. So what has gone on? Well, what we're going to start off with and talk about first is that, this, which is my letter of resignation from the school committee, which I am going to pull up on the screen and we are going to go through together. I'm going to read it to you, but I want to preface what happened, at least in my own words first. Well, it's all in my own words, but before we get into the letter of resignation. So, just to sort of back up, the last time I really talked publicly was probably on Deb's channel when I talked about, the experiences of being a school committee member, the isolation, how you don't know what other committee members think and feel, how you're just sort of out there, hey, I have to wait to the next meeting till you can do anything. You're just sort of in, an extreme sort of limbo, not really giving any super concrete information about what goes on, but just sort of, going through, the motions and sort of giving that, more personal experience. Nothing really board or district specific. We went through several meetings. We went through a whole masking thing. I'm sure some of you are local residents. You've seen that. You saw me on that, and you saw how I voted on that. Just a lot of stuff that went on. And what happened was that as time went on, I was having conversations with a few different people, and there was a conversation about how, me being on the school committee for the purposes of why I was on it, or what I was trying to not trying to achieve, but trying to understand and learn through it. It was starting to become an artifact, not an artifact, but an issue of diminishing returns, that I was going to start to give more to the system than the system was going to give back or allow me to interact with it. And that was becoming very obvious to me, and I knew that was definitely a risk going into becoming a school committee member. I knew some of the rules and restrictions. I knew that there was a lot that I couldn't do. I knew, one of the things that I knew right off the bat was that I can't control curriculum that's done at a, at a teacher level. So I knew none of that was going to really come into the realm of what I was going to be talking about in public session or even in executive session. That, it's just not typical items or even powers that school committees have to dictate what's going on with regards to curriculum or what's going on with the different issues and critical theories. Well, what happened was that a job position had opened up while all of this was going on, and the conversation about diminishing returns started to come up. And I applied for it, I got an interview, and it happened to be with the town administrator's office in the town of Templeton, which is the town that I live in. So I went and did the interview, and of course, school committee member in the town, they know who I am. And I've also worked for the town of Templeton before. I've been a municipal employee there before. And, conversation came up of, you can do the interview if you want to. That's perfectly legitimate. But because you're a school committee member, you have to make a choice. You either have to accept the position, well, not accept the position, but you either have to resign and then see if an offer gets put on the table, because I can't even get an offer on the table because of Mass state law. Or I can stay on school committee and, nothing happens, I can't get the job. So that came up. The offer can't even be put on the table. You can't even consider it. So I had a meeting that day. It happened to be September 15th was the day of my interview. September 15th was also the day of the last school committee meeting that I attended, and the last school committee meeting, whole school committee meeting that happened in the district. So I went for the meeting, and very quickly realized, through a bunch of conversations that came up, that I later talked on Deb's channel about, that it was just, the issue of diminishing returns was very obvious, but also it was just, It was unpleasant. Not necessarily was anything happening to me in the room. That wasn't really the problem. It was just, I had been telling myself for a few weeks now that things reminded me of what things were like in high school, and basically that whole experience just reminded me of what high school was like, and I did not become elected to go back to high school and deal with just the way that sort of operates, in terms of personalities and in terms of the way people sort of not go at each other, but the way that people discuss things and try and do whatever. So I was just not having it. The topics that came up, I was just, we had other issues that we needed to deal with, and I didn't think it was an appropriate use of our time. And at the end of that meeting, I was just sort of at my wit's end and thought to myself, this is definitely the diminishing returns part. This is where it's starting to transfer over to the other side. I'm fully cognizant of that, and I realize I need to get out of this. One way or the other, I don't even care if I get this job, I need to get out of this. So I decided to resign. I was lucky. I did get that offer on the table, and I did accept that job, so I am now the administrative intern for the Select Board's office in the Town Administrator's office of the Town of Templeton. And that is where we are today. I'm going to go through what my letter of resignation is, just so that is clearly on the table with what I had said. Both the school committee chair and the superintendent of schools got that letter, as well as my town clerk. So I'm going to pull that up and then probably switch screens. Here we go. There we go. So I'm going to read through it with you. So it's to Chair Margaret J. Hughes, Narragansett Regional School District School Committee. Copied on Dr. Christopher D. Cassavant, the Superintendent of Schools, Secretary to the School Committee, and copied on Ms. Carol A. Harris, Town Clerk for the Town of Templeton. It was also meant, obviously, for the entire rest of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee. Madam Chair and fellow committee members, I write this letter knowing it will be my last correspondence with the committee as a member. Recently, I came to a decision. I wanted to change course with my career path. After searching for alternate work, I applied and was granted an interview for a position in the office of the Select Board for the Town of Templeton. The Massachusetts Conflict of Interest Law clearly forbids a circumstance in which I serve on this committee and be under employment within the office of the Select Board at the same time. So a choice needed to be made. Let me make this clear. I did not make this decision based on the difficulty of the topics and situations presented before the committee. I enjoy a good challenge, nor was it made because of time constraints. I have the time to serve, but because of the inherent conflict at play. It was not a choice I made in a vacuum, especially given the time and energy residents in both Templeton and Phillipston gave me when I first sought out to be elected last March. After much consideration, I have chosen to resign from the committee. This resignation will take place effective immediately on the 16th day of September, Common Era 2021, and forfeits my rights of membership on the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 109. Once this letter has been properly sent to the district clerk, Dr. Cassavant, it is final. This resignation will also be sent to the clerk of the Town of Templeton, where I am a resident, as to also notify the town of the vacancy. In parting with this committee, I offer the following: a reminder that this committee's will is meant to represent the will of the residents of both Templeton and Phillipston, and so the votes cast are meant to mean the sum views of the people, as well as the continuance of the hopes and designs of those original planners of the district who drafted those ideas into what later became the founding regional agreement back in 1955. Respectfully, Mr. Justice J.H. Graves, a Templeton resident. I'm going to switch back. So, and I know earlier in this video I said, at the end of that meeting I just wanted a way out. That's partially true. I'm a stubborn person. I was going to stick on anyway. But after much consideration and the fact that there was a job opportunity on the table, it was just sort of like, take the risk, go for it. But I just wanted to lay that out there, that is the reason why I resigned. It had nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't do it. In fact, I actually do plan on being in attendance as a citizen at the regular school committee business meeting on October 6th, which is this upcoming Wednesday. So I don't really have a problem. I just plan on being there as a resident. I'm going to look and see what's on the agenda. I'm not sure what is. Well, I have a pretty good guess because it's their next meeting after my resignation, so I have a pretty good idea what's on the agenda. But it'll certainly be interesting. But I am showing up in attendance because there's nothing stopping me that night, as far as I'm aware. Now, at the same time that has happened, I am no longer under the constraint that I can't talk about what's going on with education in the United States and other things that related to that. I am on another committee in town now because I wanted to still serve, so I switched onto something else that was available. The select board so voted me in. That's not an issue for the purposes of what I use this channel for, so I'm not going to there's just certain topics and certain things that maybe I was going to do that I'm not going to do still, because I still can't do that. You're going to see that sort of mesh up with what's going on, where I sort of stop the line on what I will talk about, but otherwise it's really just sort of fair game. I'm not going to talk about a lot of things that are specific to my district. I'll talk about some personal experiences and some of my thoughts when I was in the hot seat, so to speak, when I was sitting on the committee. But other than that, that's just sort of the way that it is going to be. At the same time, I'm also going to outline what the next few videos are going to be on this channel. So let me just pull up, because I have a few slides. It's not really that long. It's just sort of to explain what's going on, because there's a few issues that I think we need to discuss at length moving forward. Because I went on a Zoom call the other day, and on that Zoom call, it was in Carlin Borisenko's group. On that call, what ended up happening was there was a lot of discussion about how different things to do with definitions. What is a conspiracy theory? What is not a conspiracy theory? Or, does saying that what's going on is a conspiracy theory an effective tactic to explain to people what's going on in the public education sector? I really don't want to get into the details of that in this video, but what that caused was for me to want to evaluate that up front in a couple of videos. And also there was a situation, I'm going to actually switch out before I go into this. What happened, there was a conversation that I had after my resignation, and that's the one with Deb. And that caused, with respect to critical race theory, or there was something else of critical race theory that I had shared, and after my resignation. And what ended up happening was that apparently a bunch of parents were confused. Well, there was actually a few things on a few sites, actually. There was a lot of crosstalk going on. There's a lot of people in the region who were misidentifying, what is cancel culture versus what is anti-racism versus what is the left's definition of anti-racism versus what is actually critical race theory versus, what's going on with all this other stuff. On top of that, there is another problem going on that has been growing in a vacuum because of what's been happening on the anti-critical race theory route, where actual dangerous white identitarians who are basically, very much just one level away from what one would consider a classical white supremacist or a classic white supremacist, and but they don't identify as being conservative. They hate conservatives, so let's just make that clear. All these people don't like conservatives. The people who are critical race theorists and the people who are white identitarians don't like conservatives. They like to think themselves as socialists and collectivists, which they all admit. Pretty out in the open. But what's happening is that people don't understand how they're playing into the situation, and they're falling into their tricks, and they're getting wrapped up into their language games, and it's confusing people, and it's causing a lot of crosstalk, a lot of I don't want to use the word misinformation because it's so overused in 2020 and 2021, but just a lot of mismatching of information and just a lot of confusion, crosstalk, and a failure of understanding, because I don't think that a lot of the groups that were fighting that reached out to me because they knew I knew more and said, hey, listen, there's something weird about this conversation that we're having. It doesn't feel like we're having a disagreement. It feels like something's just really off. And I said, you really just need to agree right now to agree to disagree, and I'll cover it in a later video that I'll do on my channel, which is what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to switch over because I've been explaining this for a little bit too long, and this is just supposed to be an updates video. So one of the first videos I'm going to do after this one is going to be called Their Dreams Are Reality. It's just going to be a talk. There's not going to really be any presentations attached to it. It's going to be Their Dreams Are Reality. All that glitters is not gold. It's a talk about our current reality, how the proposed solutions of our time are causing real harm, and that this is not a basic informational video. If you are so new to what's going on with critical theories and you don't understand what the white identitarians are, watch when those videos get released. Don't watch this one because you're going to get really confused really quickly. I'm going to do a video on what is critical race theory and other commonly misunderstood terms. It's going to be a basic one, so I'm going to try and do it in the most basic way possible that does not conflict with any, I guess, official definitions that we want to go with based on certain people who are really in the field on this. We're going to cover terms such as critical race theory, cancel culture, cultural appropriation, anti-racism, and social emotional learning. We're going to cover what those terms mean and some examples of them, but we're not going to go into too much depth, so I just want you to understand that. Who are the white identitarians? What does anti-white mean? And other misunderstood terms. Basic terminology and introductory video. It's going to cover this is my acronym or, little nickname for them are WIDs, WIDs, are, and we're going to cover other terms such as their definition of what anti-white means. They have these other terms such as Westmen, Western kind. It feels gross because it is gross. They have white well-being, and we're going to talk about what is the white positivity movement, which a journalist, an actual journalist from the UK and somebody in the States have actually done a really good, have done really quality research on it and published an expose on the issue that we're also going to cover in that video. And then we're going to talk about the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, the PPRA, because a lot of parents don't understand what their actual rights and responsibilities are as parents or what sort of rights they have as parents in general when it comes to different situations. This particular act, the PPRA, was passed in 1978. It's also known as the Hatch Amendment, and the law is intended to protect the rights of pupils and parents of pupils in programs funded by the U.S. Department of Education. I have to read into it more. We're going to do a presentation on it. I understand some basics of it. I've heard a couple of talks from some lawyers on the particular issue who are trustworthy on this particular subject, and we're going to go into depth on that. Those are the updates. There's probably going to be a few other updates on the channel as well as we move along, but that is all I really have. My resignation, what I'm doing now, well, not really, well, yeah, I have a new job and stuff, and how I'm going to make content now and try and stay up to date, and also move this channel in the direction of explaining to you how the government works, not just about, how do I want to phrase this? I'm going to talk about how the government works, in what way the government works, in the way that the government has not been teaching you how it actually operates, because a lot of stuff that's going on right now is just propaganda for how things supposedly work and what supposedly works on fixing the system. And I think people need to be really careful and be really aware about that and educated on that and not operate in this vacuum that is filled with false information. Like, share, and subscribe if you like this content, and check out my past videos if you want to know what this channel is all about. I know there's a lot of new subscribers. I know as of when I'm posting this, I'm at 111 subscribers. Thank you to everybody who has been subscribing, and I'm going to be on a talk on Monday, October 4th at 5 p.m. with Deb and Dr. B about how to push back against critical race theory in a strategic and smart way with the public schools that does not involve yelling at your school board, because it doesn't work, and they're not the ones that make those decisions anyway. But again, just like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate all of you who are supporting me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day whenever you're watching this. Thank you very much.